time of the year, but it's not what we expect for us to get hit like this again.
To plan, prepare, and protect.
If it rains at your home, it could flood at your home.
Like a prized fighter, hurricane season can pack a punch.
Tornadoes level houses, and you don't know the severity of it. You don't know that you're going to survive it.
And you need to expect the unexpected.
That was a big alligator just threw our tire.
During these months of uncertainty,
this is the area of rotation we're talking about. This is paralleling 41, moving to the north.
there's one team you can count on to be here.
We realized with your warnings, everything was coming through.
Undoubtedly, every time a potential tropical cyclone comes around, we get at least a few questions here at the station asking, what the heck is that?
Time and time again.
But just clean up, get devastated. Clean up, get devastated.
From the first tropical wave
But we're getting into late May.
to cleanup and recovery. We're in this together.
I think it really speaks to the importance of a community at a time like this, because this is not something to endure alone.
Bending, but never breaking.
I'm not going to let these hurricanes beat us. No way.
Now, here are your hosts of Gulf Coast Weather's Plan Prepare and Protect Guide to the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season. Kelly Burns, Peter Bush, and Allison Ray.
We are here just before the Sanibel Causeway, where the signs of Hurricane Ian can still be seen. Whether you are a rookie to hurricane season or a grizzled veteran, Mother Nature probably doesn't care if you pay attention to the next hour, but we certainly want to pass along this information.
At Gulf Coast News, we want to help you plan so that you're prepared with the knowledge you'll need to protect yourself, your family, and your property.
Over the next hour, we are going to get you everything you need to know, from building a hurricane kit to items you didn't even know you needed to what to do after the storm.
The 2024 season was as active as it was destructive. Storms killed 401 people and at $129 billion in damage. It's now the third costliest storm season behind only 2017 and 2005.
But here's the headline. It doesn't matter what's happened in years past. Like a snowflake, no two hurricane seasons and no two storms are alike.
2025 is expected to be another active season. Right now, sea surface temperatures are above normal, but there is a silver lining. They are not as warm as last year.
CSU released its predictions back in April. From June 1st to November 30th, there's expected to be 17 named storms, 9 hurricanes, and 4 major hurricanes.
Updated forecasts are released in June, July, and August. The lead author of that report, Dr. Phil Klotzbach, believes that 2025 has similar characteristics to 2008, 2011, and 2017, which was the costliest season on record.
And I had the chance to speak with Dr. Klotzbach when he visited FGCU. Having someone with that wealth of knowledge is a rare opportunity, so I wanted to find out why he believes there seems to be a new trend in the Atlantic Basin.
We actually had 7 hurricanes in the Atlantic after September 25th, which is the most on record for September 25th to the end of the season.
The 2024 Atlantic hurricane season was one for the record books. While forecast to be a busy season, it was a 5-week lull in mid-August. That was a head-scratcher. The unusual pattern was largely driven by warming upper-level temperatures, which stabilized the atmosphere and suppressed storm formation until the atmosphere changed. Colorado State University hurricane expert Dr. Phil Klotzbach visited the Gulf Coast recently. I took that opportunity to find out if this is the sign of a new trend.
One thing that we have observed is that we're trending overall more towards La Nina the last 30 to 40 years, which is colder than normal water in the central and eastern tropical Pacific. That tends to reduce your wind shear in the Atlantic,
which can extend the busy part of our hurricane season. As we look ahead to 2025, early indicators suggest a transition toward La Nina, setting up for another busy year. But Dr. Klotzbach reminds us that while seasonal forecasts can predict overall activity, exactly where storms will hit remains uncertain.
I think one of the key things, especially for places like Southwest Florida that obviously been hit a lot recently, is it's not necessarily this is the new normal. I think that's something we have to be very careful of. You can have these periods, especially when you go for smaller areas, you can have periods where you basically get lucky or get unlucky, for lack of a more scientific term.
Living in Florida and on the Gulf Coast, Dr. Klotzbach says we've been impacted before and we will again. So plan and prepare no matter what the forecast says.
So we got, the forecast actually ended up pretty good. We got the numbers that we were forecasting just in a very unusual way.
Our team of meteorologists use a wide range of tools to predict and track storms.
There may be one long-range forecasting tool that could be more accurate than a 7-day forecast. Gulf Coast meteorologist Jason Dunny explains the LRC.
Well, heading into every hurricane season, we're used to tropical predictions that look like this. This is from Colorado State University. There's others, NOAA, they put out tropical outlooks, and it gives us a really good measure if we're going to have an average, above average, below average season. Well, it looks like the 2025 hurricane season, by all indications, will be above average. Colorado State, for example, calling for 17 named storms, 9 of those hurricanes, 4 of those major hurricanes, and you can see what we get on average over the last 30 years. What if there was a way to take it a step farther, not just know how many storms, but where those storms could impact and when? Well, there's another forecasting technique that is popular among a lot of meteorologists. It's called the LRC, and it's based on the idea that the atmosphere works in cycles and patterns. Basically, think of the phrase, what goes around comes around. So if we can identify these atmospheric cycles or patterns that repeat, we can sort of identify and highlight potential hotspots during hurricane season. Not only that, but also kind of the time frame that we could see those weather patterns repeat themselves. Let's look back at the LRC for last hurricane season, okay, 2024, and you can see the region of the coast highlighted in red, the north and eastern Gulf Coast, the Florida Gulf Coast, and also the Carolinas. All of the lines are the storm tracks that we saw, and of course, the Florida Gulf Coast, in particular the Panhandle, saw a very active year with Debbie, you had Helene, and Milton. And so the LRC forecasting technique got about 80% of those tropical landfalls. The question is, what does it show for the 2025 hurricane season? Well, based on all the signals, the Gulf is going to be a very active zone. At least chances are higher than normal that it will. And you can see, of course, Southwest Florida included in that zone as well. That doesn't necessarily mean we're guaranteed to be impacted from a tropical system. It just means that there's signs that chances are above normal. But we can take it a step farther and kind of identify, based on those patterns, windows, what we call potential return dates, when the activity might be in sort of an upward phase. So that would be June 23rd to the 29th, August 3rd through the 9th, and September 11th through the 19th, when we could see, again, potential impacts from a tropical feature here across the Gulf. And we'll keep you updated, of course. This is just a tool that we use. Again, just want to stress, it doesn't mean that we're going to get hit on those dates, but something to watch for as we go through the hurricane season.
Forecasting a storm's path can be unpredictable, but as each system treks across the Atlantic, there comes a time when each one hits a crossroads.
Gulf Coast weather meteorologist Jim Dickey explains how this fork in the road directly impacts us here on the Gulf Coast.
Charlie, Irma, Ian, all storms that made landfall here on the Gulf Coast. But long before they arrived on our coastline, they all got their start more than 4,000 miles away, over Africa. As we go into the heart of hurricane season, keep a close eye on what we call African easterly waves. That is, these clusters of thunderstorms that form over sub-Saharan Africa and then move westward into the Atlantic. Under the right conditions, these disturbances can and often do develop into tropical storms and hurricanes. Now, yes, some of those storms that get their start in Africa move west and strike the U.S. Many also do not, turning harmlessly northward into the open Atlantic. So why do some storms turn while others head our way? The answer is often found here, in the stretch of the Atlantic between Bermuda and the Azores, where we find a large area of high pressure, aptly named the Bermuda-Azores High. Remember, a tropical storm or hurricane can't steer itself. Rather, it is steered by these large-scale wind patterns like the Bermuda-Azores High. The hurricane can't track directly into the high. It acts as sort of a roadblock and therefore has to go around it. Think of it like this. Say this car is a hurricane in the Atlantic that wants to go there, towards the exit. It can start a ways, but then encounters the Bermuda Azores High in its path, blocking it. So instead, it has to go another way. A similar process plays out in the Atlantic. Generally speaking, when the high is weak or centered closer to the Azores, storms in the eastern Atlantic are more likely to turn north and away from the U.S. and the Caribbean. However, when the high is stronger or centered closer to Bermuda, storms are more likely to take a westerly course across the Caribbean and toward Florida and the United States. The location and strength of the Bermuda Azores High is a huge forecast factor during hurricane season, and it's something the Gulf Coast Storm Team will be monitoring closely as we track any and all developing storms for you this year.
Chances are you've heard of NOAA's hurricane hunters. The brave men and women of this unit have a long history dating back to 1946. It primarily collects data from inside a hurricane at different altitudes. That information is then relayed back to the National Hurricane Center. That data is then analyzed and used for more accurate warnings, stronger forecasting, and better preparedness for our local communities.
The Atlantic Basin hurricane season runs from June 1st to November 30th, 182 days.
Activity usually picks up in August, with the statistical peak hitting on September 10th. That's when conditions are ripe. Ocean water is at its warmest. There's a lot of humidity in the air and a low pressure area, complete favorable edge of formation.
And as we have learned in the past, while rare, systems can form outside of those dates. So Gulf Coast meteorologist Lauren Holm went to find out if hurricane season is getting longer.
You always have the worry going into hurricane season.
We're all already nervous about hurricane season. We're all already talking about it.
And that worry may last longer in the future. Some projections showing the Atlantic hurricane season is expected to last a month longer by the end of the century.
One of the main ingredients needed for tropical development are very warm sea surface temperatures at or above 80 degrees Fahrenheit. The Gulf and tropical Atlantic are typically only this warm about half of the year, which is why hurricane season runs from June through November.
But with hotter than usual seas, 8 out of the last 10 hurricane seasons started early with a named storm before June 1st.
We've had tropical storms and hurricanes form every month of the year across the Atlantic Basin. They're pretty rare as you get into, say, January or February, but they occasionally do happen.
And in recent years, strong activity even on the tail ends of hurricane season. In 2022, Nicole formed in November, becoming the second latest U.S. landfalling hurricane on record. Just last year, Hurricane Beryl became the earliest Category 5 on record, forming in July.
That's the type of storm you would normally see at the peak of hurricane season, say in August or September. It's very unusual to have this type of long track major hurricane coming out of the deep tropical Atlantic in June and July.
So could hurricane season be getting longer?
About 96% of the historical activity in the Atlantic Basin happens between June 1st and November 30th. So that's still the definition of hurricane season. We don't anticipate that changing anytime soon.
And in Florida, we have to be ready all season.
In South Florida in particular, the most likely time for us to see threatening storm is often a little bit later, kind of in that October timeframe.
Often with short notice.
Some of the most powerful storms are storms that develop very close to us and rapidly strengthen and then make landfall within 3 or 4 days.
In Fort Myers, meteorologist Lauren Hope, Gulf Coast News.
A nightlight with no batteries and the hurricane kit items you didn't know you needed when Gulf Coast Weather's Plan, Prepare, Protect returns.
Building a hurricane kit is essential before the start of hurricane season. If this is your first, make sure you have the basics, at least a 3-day supply of water and non-perishable food for everyone in your house.
Refill those medications if you can. We might not get deliveries immediately after a storm. But as the threats have become greater and storms have become stronger, it might be time for a kit update.
And filling those tubs with items can be costly, but you might already have some of those items laying around your house right now, and you may want to consider making them a part of your emergency plan.
If all of these active hurricane seasons have taught us anything, it's prepare your hurricane kit now. But we know about canned food and water. What are some of those obscure items that you might not think of, that you don't see on a typical hurricane kit list? Let's go find some of those items. Okay, well, of course gas is going to be on your hurricane kit list, but here's a tip that's not going to be on the list. Get it before June 1st. Get it before hurricane season. The earlier, the better. So you're not waiting in line at all. Now, gas can last in the can about 3 to 6 months, depending on where it's stored. Take a piece of tape and write down the date that you filled this gas up. Then, if you haven't used it in a couple of months, put it in your car. If you live near the water or where water can rise easily, you're probably under evacuation orders. But if you happen to be at your house and you see the water rising before the storm arrives, make sure you locate where your life jackets are. We're in Florida. Lots of life jackets are laying around from boats or kayaks or canoes. Grab yours and have it with you so you don't have to go swim to get it. Make sure it is on hand. It's scary to think about, but if the water rises too much, this is something you're going to want to have. And if you have pets, grab them one too. What if you don't live in a flood zone or an evacuation zone, but you are home and now the winds are picking up and you're worried something might happen to your home? A couple of good items to have in your home. And again, this sounds dire, but you don't know what kind of situation you're going to end up in. A helmet. If your roof comes off, you don't know what could come into your home or fall onto your head. Instead of covering your head with your hands or a pillow, this is going to do a lot better. A whistle. If you have a boat, you probably already have one, or you should have one. This could alert any officials or emergency responders, first responders. If you are trapped, this is going to be a great tool to use. And again, dire circumstances, but what if the waters are rising? You need to get out, and the only way is up. An axe is going to help you, or something to break those walls. Now, if you are not in an evacuation zone, still, most likely the cable, internet are going to go out, and the power too. But we can still get you information. If the cable or internet goes out, we will still be on air. Gulf Coast News runs over the air through your digital antenna. Most of the newer TVs have them built in, but if not, you can get one for pretty cheap and still get Gulf Coast News. Also, once the power goes out, we will most likely be streaming on FM radio, multiple stations. So you need one of these old guys. Yeah, they still exist and they're pretty cheap. Battery operated is going to be key here so that you can always get us streaming on FM radio. You can also get a weather radio that also will have FM, AM radio. This one even has a flashlight. While we're talking about flashlights, why leave yourself one-handed? Get yourself a headset. It is so much easier to walk around the home and do what you need to do when you have both hands free. All right, let's talk about water. This is always going to be the first thing that everyone grabs as soon as the first forecast cone is issued in the vicinity of Florida. And everyone is fighting for bottles of water, the jugs of water. I don't fight the crowds. What I do is I get collapsible, reusable water jugs. These are about 5-gallon jugs. So I have about 5 of them, and I fill them up every year, and I automatically have 25 gallons of water without fighting the crowds. While we're in the kitchen, let's talk about how everyone likes to keep their valuables in the dishwasher. I know from experience, this is not waterproof. I came home to a lot of storm water in here. If you want to keep your documents or valuables safe, what I do, fireproof, waterproof bag. Everything is in here sealed up. One thing we know after the storm in Florida, it's going to be hot. Now, this fan's not battery operated, but I assure you, you want to find a battery operated fan. Keep yourself a little bit more comfortable after the storm. But let's talk about your air conditioning unit and how we could potentially save it. Now, obviously, this is going to have to be done well ahead of an approaching storm, but if you live in a flood area, think about elevating your air conditioning unit or your home generator. And it might not even stop with that. Watch this. This was an easy fix after replacing these appliances more than once. Think about elevating your washer and dryer or any other appliance that you can. Now, for less than $100, I have my washer and dryer safe for 24 inches of water. All right, let's talk about sandbags because these can be such an arduous and stressful task filling these up. First, once you have them filled for one storm, keep the sandbags for the rest of the season. You don't know if another storm surge threat could be headed our way within just a couple of weeks. Now you already have them ready to go. Just kind of pile them up. Also, sometimes if you're late to the party with the sandbags, they run out of sandbags but still have sand. So nothing's stopping you from getting these bags ahead of time. Once the storm is over, one thing that I think I've always underestimated I need is cleaning supplies, bleach, mold control, especially if you do have any of that storm water hit your home and get anything dirty. For any of these tips, go to the Gulf Coast News app and click on the Hurricanes tab.
Well, throughout the hurricane season, you probably hear a lot of talk about forecast models, the spaghetti models, the American model, the European model. They're important tools to help us forecast the path and strength of storms. And over the last few years, some of these weather models have gotten remarkably accurate, and one can even say smarter, with the help of artificial intelligence.
Right now, forecasters are relying more on artificial intelligence to sharpen forecasts and potentially save lives. AI-powered forecast models are proving to be game changers in the field of meteorology.
For a given storm, sometimes they've beaten our traditional, leading hurricane models even.
Dr. Michael Fisher studies machine learning at the University of Miami's Rosenstiel School of Marine, Atmospheric, and Earth Science. His passion for weather started as a kid, fueled by the devastation of Hurricane Andrew in 1992. Now, Dr. Fisher is researching the power of AI to track hurricanes.
AI is such a rapidly growing field. Even the techniques and things that were used a few years ago are kind of obsolete in some realms, and so there's such continuing improvements in the field. It's excited to be pushing the envelope of what we can do.
The models are trained using decades of historical weather data, essentially learning from the past to predict the future. Even with all the promise AI-driven models have shown, they do have their limitations. And Dr. Fisher says the biggest problem is the lack of weather observations and quality data.
We need to have as accurate of initial state as possible. If we have something wrong, that can snowball with time and cause errors. So I think it's also going to depend on how can we improve our observations. We can continue adding new satellites with better resolution.
Naples High and FSW graduate William Bouza, now one of Dr. Fisher's students at UM, remembers the chaos as Hurricane Irma was heading for South Florida.
It was that time where the cone just kept moving from Miami to Naples to Miami. It was like, why is this happening? How can I stop that?
William believes that tapping into the full potential of AI will mean less chaos and more coordination.
I think it could allow them to get the message quicker. It could improve the way the Hurricane Center gives them that message, and I think it can improve just the Hurricane Center's overall forecast.
Dr. Fisher agrees.
I'm excited about potentially creating more accurate forecasts, providing tools to help forecasters make more accurate forecasts so we can help save lives and property in the path of these really devastating storms.
Reporting from the University of Miami, meteorologist Jason Dunning, Gulf Coast News.
We are going out on the water to see what fuels a hurricane and how a new tool is measuring storm surge on the Gulf Coast.
Hurricane Ian exposed a major gap in storm surge data. Knowing where the water is rising can be as critical as knowing where the storm is headed.
Hide from the wind, run from the water. True no matter what storm is headed our way. During Ian, knowing just how high the water was rising and where was difficult to gauge.
After Ian, we saw that there was really an absence of data, especially hyperlocal data, that could tell us exactly what the water levels were.
Lee County Director of Public Safety, Ben Abus, must balance safety and budget. Traditional NOAA tide gauges can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars and years to install. And there's only a handful of water gauges along the entire Gulf Coast of Florida.
Fewer than 300 tide gauges for 95,000 miles of U.S. coastline just isn't enough granularity.
Now, there may be a safety-conscious and cost-effective solution. Hawaii-based company Hohonu is stepping in with affordable, cutting-edge sensors that provide real-time data. At just $4,000 a year, these small but accurate sensors are being deployed across the Gulf Coast. It's all thanks to a tax assessment called the All Hazards Fund.
The key things for us is that that data is validated and has scientific rigor, so there's some quality to it.
The value in these are not only for the real-time data.
Dr. Brian Glazier is the co-founder and CEO of Hohonu. He's also an associate professor of oceanography at the University of Hawaii.
We're not out to replace NOAA tide gauges, and NOAA doesn't have the funds to go and increase granularity the way that we do. So it's really a nice partnership.
Water-based sensors track rising tides and storm surge. Land-based sensors like those on First Street or in St. James City detect flooding over roads and low-lying areas. During Hurricanes Helene and Milton, Hohonu's sensors proved their durability.
One of our radar sensors was installed on the Matlacha Bridge for both hurricanes and received a direct hit during Hurricane Milton, not only by the hurricane, but also from the tornado. And there's some great footage from Florida Department of Transportation looking at that tornado direct hit. Our sensor's in that wind field and was continuing to ping back 1 minute average storm surge data for that water level.
Lee County started with 11 sensors last summer, 9 more on the way. 8 ultrasonic and 1 radar, all in time for hurricane season. 2 of them will end up at Fort Myers Beach.
We've got one that'll be over the Back Bay and one that'll be over the inland area just off of the Back Bay.
With updates every minute, it's practically real time, offering you peace of mind and a clear picture of where that rising water is.
Improving accuracy for forecasting storm surges is 100% one of our goals.
Just 12 months ago is that you really didn't know where the water was rising or falling or what the actual live conditions were. And now we have those in nearly a dozen locations, and we'll be at almost 24 here within a couple of weeks.
Charlotte County also purchased 5 water level monitoring stations. They will track water levels at Lemon Bay, Boca Grande Causeway, Port Charlotte, and Punta Gorda. We're told that all the data will be made publicly available.
Flood protection doesn't have to break the bank when Gulf Coast Weather's Plan, Prepare, and Protect returns. Welcome back to Gulf Coast Weather's Plan, Prepare, and Protect. I'm Kelly Burns.
And I'm Peter Bush. We're here right before the Sanibel toll booth where the damage from Hurricane Ian is still quite evident.
I'm Chief Meteorologist Allison Ray. When Ian slammed into Cayo Costa on September 28th, we've been tracking the system for about 2 weeks. This year, we could alert you to potential threats even sooner. Gulf Coast meteorologist Rob Duns explains how.
Let's talk about a new change happening in hurricane season 2025, and it revolves around a specific term called potential tropical cyclone. Now, this phrase, potential tropical cyclone, is nothing new. It's been used by the National Hurricane Center going all the way back to 2017. But undoubtedly, every time a potential tropical cyclone comes around, we get at least a few questions here at the station asking, what the heck is that? And I think a lot of people are thrown specifically by this word right here, cyclone. Obviously, in North America, we don't say the word cyclone very often. But if you were to look for the most basic definition of what cyclone actually means, very simply, it means a large-scale circulation of wind around a central area of low pressure. Well, that means that a tropical depression is technically a type of cyclone. A tropical storm is technically a type of cyclone. Hurricanes and typhoons, they're both a type of cyclone. And, you know, in the wintertime, when we on occasion get a cold front to move as far south as the Gulf Coast of South Florida, well, that front is attached to a storm system that, as it moves across the United States, is a type of mid-latitude cyclone. So again, we don't say the word very often, especially on TV here in the United States, but undoubtedly cyclones very much impact our weather year-round, of course, here in South Florida. So what is a potential tropical cyclone? Well, have a look at this example of one from last year. Obviously, with all that cloud cover building up, something's trying to go in there. But as of the most recent data, it's not organized enough to be declared a tropical depression, a tropical storm, or a hurricane. And that's why potential tropical cyclones are so important. They're given to features that aren't organized enough to be officially declared at least a depression, but they're going to impact land in the not-too-distant future. So what the National Hurricane Center does with them is they issue forecast codes and they issue advanced warnings before something is technically declared a depression because it's going to become an impact to land in the not too distant future. That's what's changing in 2025. Up until last year, the amount of heads-up time that a potential tropical cyclone offered was up to 48 hours advance notice of it impacting land. But new in 2025, the heads-up time is expanding up to 72 hours. That means we could have up to 3 days advance notice that a potential tropical cyclone is going to be designated, which means more advance warning for you this hurricane season.
A lot of terms like that will be thrown around as a tropical system gets closer.
Each carries its own importance. Listening for those watches and warnings can be the difference between evacuating on time or getting stuck behind.
A watch means conditions could worsen in the specified area within 48 hours. This is when you should review your evacuation plan and make sure all supplies are on hand. A warning means you have 36 hours. This is an immediate call to action. Here's an easy way to remember it. A watch is similar to having all the ingredients you need to bake a cake. A warning means the cake is done and ready to eat.
If you need to evacuate, you'll want some peace of mind to protect your investment.
Hurricane shutters are designed to withstand high winds and protect windows from being blown out. They come in different styles. There's storm panels, which you have to put up and take down, or accordion and rolling systems, which are permanently attached.
On the more expensive side are impact windows and doors. It will cost you thousands to do your home. And while they won't shatter, they can still crack. All of those options can lower insurance premiums. But remember, the weakest entry point of any home is the garage door.
But most of the damage is done by rising waters. Many Gulf Coast residents are turning to flood panels and gates. They can prevent storm surge water from entering your home through windows and doors. The owner of Sunmaster of Naples says the mitigation effort could be the difference between hundreds or thousands of dollars in damages.
Hurricane Helene, Debbie, Idalia, Milton, all of those were low-level flood events that we could have mitigated a ton of damage in this area with the proper use.
And while those items are costly if you're on a budget, it could be as easy as some plastic sheeting and spray.
Inga Lodge keeps a reminder of the storm that cost her everything on the first floor of her home.
We have a line to remind us, so it was up to here. We had about almost 6 feet of water in here.
It took more than a year and $500,000 to put it all back together. Then came Helene in September.
So we had maybe an inch in our house. It quickly went out. And, we're just starting to have those conversations. And then the Saturday, it's like, so guess what? There's another hurricane coming next week.
As Milton barreled into the Gulf, Inga came up with a plan. A neighbor tried a product called Flex Seal, a liquid rubberized coating that creates a waterproof barrier.
And it's a multi-process system. Like you're supposed to do one layer of this, let it dry for 8 hours, do another, put the tape on. We didn't really have that.
She added some sandbags to the recipe and hoped for the best. Her husband wasn't convinced.
He's like, why are you wasting your time? And now he's like, okay, I'm gonna give it to you. That actually worked.
This is the video Inga sent to me during Milton's storm surge. Her lower level French doors looked like an aquarium, water pushing up against the glass in waves. You see the plastic tarp, the sandbags, all held together with the Flex Seal.
I don't think anything's foolproof at this point, but I think it definitely was substantial in the fact that it didn't let in as much water as we could have. I mean, we had the same amount of water outside for Ian as we did inside. And now we've got almost 3 feet and a couple inches.
Every hurricane season, you guys are like, get your preparedness ready, get your box ready with your essentials.
Gwen Misery and her family spent 2 full days prepping for Hurricane Milton after Ian destroyed their canal front home and all of her family's belongings.
So all of
this is hurricane stuff?
Yes, and more is on order.
She bought Flex Seal, water dams, reusable sandbags, and the secret sauce holding the moisture out.
And the night before Milton, one of our contractors came to us and said to use roofing tape.
Gwen also put barriers on the inside of her home.
And this is very similar. It's like a sock, but it absorbs gallons of water.
The biggest expense of all, she bought a giant Hydra barrier to surround her entire home.
The barriers did hold.
So you just put the barrier out here, fill it with water.
Yep. And then, like I said, it takes about 5 minutes to fill it and takes 3 minutes to empty it. It's easy.
Now, instead of one bin, a whole section of her garage is dedicated to hurricane supplies to protect her home during the next big storm.
Is it ever going to come a point where you're like, I'm done with this?
Every storm. And then I wake up the next day and love my house and do it again.
The price of living in paradise.
Know your zone. During an emergency, you're going to hear a lot of talk about zones.
And there are 2 types. While they look similar, it is important to know the difference.
There is a flood zone. That is used mainly by insurance companies to determine the risk.
An evacuation zone. This is the important one during an impending storm. This is to move you out of the way of a potential storm surge event. There are 5 zones, A, B, C, D, and E. Remember, during an evacuation, think miles, not hours. Find a place to stay inland, where you'll be out of the way of potentially deadly rising waters.
Back in 2022, the state wanted to help you fortify your home. So they created the My Safe Florida Home program. Eligible homeowners can receive a wind mitigation inspection, which can result in grants to add things like impact windows and doors. The program was so popular, in 2024, it ran out of funds within 2 weeks.
So when it comes to hurricane preparedness,
Preparing for storm season is a year-round event.
When you can expect the lights to come back on, no matter what power company you use.
Being without power for nights after a hurricane can be a super frustrating experience. So here's a tip on how to multi-purpose a few things you probably already have in your hurricane kit to give yourself some better light sources at night. Now, of course, everybody's hurricane kit, of course, already includes a flashlight, even if it's a little baby one like this. But flashlights, well, they're not exactly the best light source if you're trying to light up like your living room and give yourself a consistent source of soft light. Instead, you really want to look for a lantern, but battery-operated lanterns can be expensive on their own, and sometimes they take really expensive batteries to operate, and kerosene lanterns can just be downright dangerous. Instead, this hurricane season, consider buying one of these. It's a flashlight that's attached to a headband that you can put around your forehead. Instead of using it for its intended purpose, though, I would suggest you turn the flashlight inside out so the flashlight is aimed at the interior portion of the band. Then, using water that you already have inside your hurricane kit, put the band flashlight around the bottle of water. All right, the hurricane hits, the power goes out. Now, to make your own homemade lantern, all you've got to do is turn on the flashlight that's being attached to the bottle by the band, and you have yourself a consistent source of light that you can also take around your house with ease. For more tips on how to best repair your home this hurricane season, check out the Gulf Coast News app.
After a storm, chances are we'll lose power. It could be days, it could even be weeks.
We get it. It can be frustrating. And as the recovery begins, one of the first questions we start getting is, when is my power going to be back on?
Gulf Coast News reporter Kennedy Mason went to our 2 main power companies to find out how they get the power back up and running and when you can expect the lights back on in your neighborhood.
Florida Power and Light,
so when it comes to hurricane preparedness,
and Lee County Electric Cooperative.
Preparing for storm season is a year-round event.
Train for hurricane season like a 365-day marathon, knowing it's a 183-day sprint. Karen Ryan is with LCEC.
We conduct maintenance all of the time. We're always adding new technology.
And Camerel Eppinger with FPL says both companies work on hardening the main power lines and infrastructure.
this project entailed replacing wooden poles with concrete structures. They have the ability to withstand 130-mile-per-hour hurricane force winds. We've been undergrounding for decades, and so far we've been able to underground 50% of our electric grid.
Both teams do all of this now to make sure your power comes back on as quickly as possible later.
You may think getting your power back on is as easy as a flick of a light, but power companies say it's not.
Once the storm hits, we restore power to the essential services first. So that would be circuits that serve hospitals, police stations, law enforcement.
Police and fire stations. And from there, we focus on those main thoroughfares that support supermarkets, pharmacies, and gas stations to help the community get back up and running.
It's transmission, substations, the main circuits, and then the feeders into neighborhoods.
Ryan says in Cape Coral, this would be the lines down Del Prado and Cape Coral Parkway. How fast you get your power back to your home depends on how the storm impacted your area. LCEC and FPL say they dial in on the hardest hit areas, and then they don't stop until everyone's power is restored.
Once it gets towards the end of restoration, if a customer says, my neighbor across the street has power, my neighbor beside me has power, I'm the only one that doesn't, we want you to call then.
But they say don't call right after the storm. And if you see that neighbor with power and yours is still out, then you may have a bigger issue.
Mostly, typically, there may be an issue with customer-owned equipment, and that's when a licensed electrician needs to come out, inspect, and repair.
So when you're in the dark after a storm, know these power crews are rushing to finish the race before the next storm hits. In Lee County, Kennedy Mason, Gulf Coast News.
The Gulf Coast Storm Team is bigger than ever before. How we are able to coordinate coast to coast in Florida.
At Gulf Coast Weather, you can count on our storm team to be equipped with the latest technology the industry has to offer.
That's our promise to you. When a tropical system forms, we are able to track it from just a group of scattered storms to a full-fledged hurricane.
And that team is not just here on the Gulf Coast. It is spread across the Florida Peninsula. Recently, I had the opportunity to take part in a hurricane summit, where I had the chance to catch up with meteorologists from Orlando to West Palm Beach.
We are joining you from the 3rd annual Local Meteorology and Communication Summit. Basically, we are preparing for 2025 hurricane season. We can never avoid it. I'm Chief Meteorologist Allison Ray.
I'm First Warning Meteorologist Cam Tran with West 2 News.
And I'm First Warning Meteorologist Sandra Shaw with WPBF 25 News in West Palm Beach.
So the great thing about the HERS Network is you have a meteorologist in your quarter across the state. For example, Hurricane Milton impacted each one of our regions in a different way. For us, we knew storm surge was such a big moment for areas in Charlotte County.
It was, and for us, it was tornadoes. We had 70 tornadoes. That was a record number. And in Southeast Florida alone, 15 tornadoes, 2 of which were EF3s that we don't see the likes of ever. It's never happened before. It's like you're in the Midwest. It was crazy.
For us, it was a combination of tornadoes and flooding. We have a lot of inland flooding. There were actually reports of 15 to 20 inches of rain that fell over Central Florida. There were a lot of water rescues, and we also had 4 confirmed tornadoes in Central Florida.
So what we are able to do is share our resources and share our experiences of how to better prepare for next year and keep you better informed no matter where you are, especially with our local station at Gulf Coast News and across the board.
Yeah, it's all about taking you on this journey with us. And if somebody suffers, we're all there for them. And we have all the forces to solidify into a unified whole. So we're there for you.
Sick and tired of hurricanes? How you could avoid storm fatigue. Next.
Share of storms hit the Gulf Coast in recent years. That's why preparing is vital. When a storm is barreling toward us, taking in information and gathering supplies can be exhausting.
It can happen several times in a season or multiple times in a year, then year after year.
The fatigue can then set in. Gulf Coast meteorologist Lauren Hope found out how you can take control of that uncertainty and create a new mindset.
Ian was awful. Bad, bad, bad.
It was a really sad day. It was a disgusting mess and just broke your heart. Everything you'd worked so hard, forks, plates, you know, pictures, lamps, everything just destroyed.
Ian, Debbie, Helene, and Milton. The past few hurricane seasons have been back-to-back storms for our area, and many are desperate for a break.
Especially for Liza and Tracy, owners of Over Easy Cafe on Sanibel, the restaurant that took on 7 feet of storm surge during Ian.
You can see where it starts to fade is where the water came up to.
And just as they got back on their feet, it happened again and again.
And we sort of felt this resurgence and things were going to be okay. And then to come back with Helene and Milton, it just knocked our legs out from under us all over again.
Flooding 3 times in 2.5 years.
It was just crushing after working so hard for so long and so emotional.
It's that feeling of helplessness that no matter what I do, I can't stop it from happening. And more importantly, I can't stop it from happening again. It's not just about the stuff, it's about the chaos, it's about having everything in their life turned upside down.
After numerous storms in our community, if you're feeling anxious this hurricane season, talk to your support system.
And if you don't have one, or if that's not working, then to talk to a counselor or a therapist. But also, we can't stop the hurricanes, but we do have power into how we prepare for them.
Uh-oh, this is real, and this is going to happen. This is our future, and we need to be better prepared, and we need to get ourselves to higher ground and, do some things to be more resilient.
So after 18 years, Over Easy Cafe is starting a new chapter this summer.
We're stubborn and pig-headed.
Still on the island, but moving to higher elevation at the village shops.
We're committed to it. We're committed to this island. Every time people come in and say, oh gosh, you girls are so resilient, and we always look at each other and we're like, are we? Are we foolish? I'm not sure which one we are. But it's just people really mean that, and it's important to them to have this place.
Determined to keep moving forward.
Our love of the island, our love of the community, and our love of what we do here and how we do it and the people we do it with. So it's just, it's a pretty special place. It's still paradise.
On Sanibel, meteorologist Lauren Hope, Gulf Coast News.
As we embark on the 2025 hurricane season in the Atlantic Basin, at Gulf Coast News, our team is committed to alerting, tracking, and keeping you safe.
You can count on us to be here on air, online, and on our Gulf Coast News app before, during, and after the storm.
And you can find all of this information from tonight on the Gulf Coast News app under the Hurricane tab and on Very Local on your streaming device.
We thank you for joining us, and while we hope it will be a quiet season for us on the Gulf Coast, the best we can do now is plan, prepare, and protect from the very worst that could come our way.
We hope that you and your family stay safe this hurricane season.